There's shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Just a question of taste with you, well, you've gone sour. You want the world plus everything, but it won't work an hour. And now your questions are kept creeping, and you go and buy our flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I won't allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. So shut your mouth.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters, the professionals. This bright and breezy Sunday morning, bit of wetness spreading across Tyneside as well. Let's see what it's like on the south coast later on. Hopefully it'll hot up for Newcastle's run into the Champions League. And for all of you Star Wars fans out there, happy May the 4th. May the Force be with you. Or may the Force be with you. Welcome to Stu. Welcome to Mitch. Welcome to you. And we're going to give Stu just a couple of minutes just to have a quick chat about what we were discussing on Friday night on the Amigos. We were having a little chat before we came on air. And I asked Stu if he was up for doing a bit. He says, well, I don't think I can add much to it. But Stu, just give us your views on what Mr. Hasty started off, Mitch followed through with, and George and Joe obviously had their say as well. What did you make of all that on Friday?
It's not as if I couldn't add to it. It's just, I think everything that needed to be said was said on Friday, and I don't think I could say it as eloquently or as passionately or with as much knowledge as what Steve and Mitch did. You know, they've lived that, and it come across exactly how it was. It was very personable and passionate, and it was needed to be said. But for me, the club, I know we'll talk about it later. If we win all 4 games, we could finish second in the league. We've won a cup. It could be the best season we've had in our living memory. But there's still, for me, 2 bones of contention with the club. So I'll add the first one I want to talk about, which was discussed on Friday, is the ballot. And for me, it's the lack of transparency that creates mistrust, not just with a ballot, but of anything in life. I mean, how easy would it be to say, this is how many tickets are available for this game? This is how many people that actually applied. This is how many people we have as members. These figures should be easily attainable and shared. I can understand why they don't, because then if people think they've got like a 1 in 20 chance of getting a ticket, then would they pay the membership fee? Personally, I would. Yes, I'm not living in Newcastle anymore, but for me, it's the club keep using this slogan or catchphrase of belong. Well, I don't mind paying 40, 50 quid to belong. No problem. Just don't take us for granted. Make me feel like I belong and not taking advantage of us, you know. And that's, I think that's the issue with me and other people I've discussed with. You know, you're not a supporter, you're a number. And does your bank balance dictates how much priority you get within Newcastle United? But it's a well, is it a disease? Is probably the wrong word, but it's something that's not just specific for Newcastle. It's with a lot of clubs in the Premier League now. The second issue I want to rear its ugly head again is this PSR thing. The lack of sponsorships, even short-term sponsorships. If you remember the last time we discussed it, I said there was low-hanging fruit that could be obtained. There is short-term deals that could be done. And Chelsea have done exactly that. They've got a front-of-shirt sponsorship with Damac, which is a real estate developer here in the Middle East. So, incidentally, does that mean Middle East money is good again? I'm getting a bit confused with it all. But and I have to be careful, I would say, because I do work in that industry. Damac don't have the best reputation for their product, but they do advertise extremely well. Now, they've seen, or not, I wouldn't say they've seen, Chelsea have seen an opportunity in the market to get a front of shirt for the rest of the season. I'm sure it'll cover the Club World Cup Championship. And they've come into the Middle East thinking, well, who wants it? They've seen Sober involved with Arsenal. They've seen MR/Noon involved with Newcastle. So this is what Mitch and myself have been banging the drum on for a long time. It's about association and kudos and being linked with something. And this is how I believe just to reiterate something I've said constantly, and I don't want to keep trotting out the same rhetoric, but I think this is where the Premier League, for me, should get pulled up. How can they judge the value of how important it is? Because if you look at the figures that have been bandied around for Chelsea's remaining 4 games plus 5, possibly 6 games in the Club World, 10 game, let's call it a 10-game agreement. It's eye-watering if you multiply that over a full season or a 2 or 3 year contract. So is it what's good for the goose is what is good for the gander, or is it the fact that the PSR and Manchester City challenges are a convenient excuse for people in our boardroom or our corridors of power to hide behind? In my opinion, they're not doing enough, and they haven't been doing enough, and more could be done. And it's little things like that that frustrates me, thinking, are we sitting on our laurels? Because I know that's not the Saudi way. They don't sit and congratulate themselves saying, oh, look, things are going well. They took a huge risk at the start of the season by selling the players. I understand the reason behind that. But during the course of this season, Lloyd Kelly's left, Miguel Almiron's left. Now, they wouldn't have been starters, but the squad members. So ultimately, our squad is weaker now than it was at the start of the season. And not to invest in January was a huge risk. Now they might call it a calculated risk, and it looks like it might pay off. But if the PSR had been, or the sponsorships had been added to, even just like I said, a few short, small, low-hanging fruit sponsorships, get 10, 15 million, and by spreading that over with the amortization, we could have went and got a 40 or 50 million pound player, which would have, as we are now, just about guaranteed ourselves the Champions League for next season. So those are the 2 things I wanted to cover, Steve, in addition to what was said superbly on Friday evening.
No, that's great. And that's it. And we didn't want to dwell too much in it anyway. I think you're right. I think 90 minutes more or less was taken up on Friday by it, well, at least an hour anyway, but it was good. And it had to be said. And like we've said many, many times on NUFC Matters, like is the critical friend. We're all supporters. We're all a bit long in the tooth. We've all been there, done it, got the T-shirt as far as protests and, politics behind the scenes are being concerned. We're just fans who care. And sometimes we feel that our advice may be better than some of the advice that's given, or certainly some of the suggestions we can make. Always the way. It's all about opinions. Some people in the chat might completely disagree with what we say, but still enjoy the shows for the other stuff that we do. But that's football. It's all about opinions. Who's right? Who's wrong? But we like to think that everybody's opinion counts on this show. Mitch. I mean, we dwelled a lot on it. I highlighted these to you and Stu before we came on. Actually, let me take that back off. Man City, of course, are leading the way on this particular question to be asked. New ticket policies for next season. Don't fall ill, don't work shifts, don't get pregnant, don't care for loved ones, don't share your ticket, don't let life get in the way. City will become the first club in the Premier League with a minimum 10-game personal attendance threshold for season ticket holders, and they're increasing minimum ticket usage from 14 to 16. Is it your season ticket they're coming after next? The club say it will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, but this will affect so many people that it's simply a bad policy and could even risk falling foul of equalities laws. We ask the club to please immediately reverse the policy. This affects everyone. And I think, that was what the protest was about against Wolves. They're making their points and they are sticking with it. And there's, again, some other figures. Season tickets removed by stealth, as they call it. 2019, 40,000 plus equals 75% of capacity. 2024 equals 35,900, which is 67% of capacity. 2026, who knows? We will soon see a capacity increase of 8,000, but the club is replacing proper season tickets with the Flexi Gold scam, as they're calling it, eroding football traditions with upfront charges, more hassle and further restrictions. Give the fans the option to choose and remove the upfront charge. You know what? This really is one of those things which, again, on here we saw coming over the horizon. Great to have the takeover. Great to be in Champions League. Great now to have a trophy. Potentially could finish second this season if we win our 4 games, as Stu's already mentioned. And the future is bright on the pitch. The question is, how many of us will actually get a chance to see it, Mitch?
Well, this is sort of, part of the thrust of what I was trying to get at on Friday night as well, was you seeing what's going on at Man City. It's not just Man City that's happening at; it's happening at other clubs as well. And the interesting thing for me is that when Man City's owners first came in, they were big on fan engagement and did a lot of things with the supporters clubs and the supporters trust. To now see them almost did loggerheads with their own fans advisory board, and fair play to them for standing up for the fans. And not just being a nodding dog and going along with what the club want to do. Sometimes it is healthy to have disagreement and better things come out of it. But this seems to be something that's, in essence, coming through a lot of clubs, and it's going to almost seems to want to change football and how, supporters get the games and putting thresholds on season tickets, and they say, like they say be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. It won't be. It can't be, because probably too many people will be affected by it. And when they want to, make draconian rules attached to things like season tickets and they dress it up with a different name, it is worrying about where is this heading, and where do they want to go with pricing and with ticketing in general. And I think it's really important that we sort of keep an eye on what's happening at other clubs, because there's absolutely no doubt in my mind it's the kind of thing we will face even with a new ground. If you look at the numbers that Man City are quoting there about they really haven't had an increase in season tickets in the real terms. And so it's very frustrating for the sort of again, to use the term, the legacy fans, the core of the supporters base. Man City, from a similar kind of background of supporters to ourselves and historically, and to see that taken away is very, very it's saddening, really, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I do keep an eye on what's going on at other clubs, and there are a lot of fans unhappy about the way things are going with regards to pricing and stuff like that. We obviously had the minimum ticket brought in. That was a victory for football fans. Football fans, of course, stood up against the Super League. Much celebration amongst supporters for doing that, and I think collectively, football supporters around the country really should be looking to work together and helping each other with this particular issue as well. So well done to Manchester City for leading the march, if you like, and just keep an eye on it. And hopefully, if you are a member of, say, the Trust, for example, maybe dropping an email to the Trust this week and just asking them about things, that if there is something like that, getting onto the Trust and saying, what are you doing about this? It'll be interesting to see what they're doing. And that isn't a dig at the Trust. I think, collectively supporters should be working together. We've always said it. We've always preached it, really. Me, Steve and Mitch have preached it for years. Would love all the fans to be working together. We are such a strong unit if we all work together. But sadly, politics has gotten in the way many, many times, so it would be good to see all the clubs linking up and stopping it. But yeah, it's a strange situation. One we'll keep an eye on, one which we won't dwell on anymore on this show this morning. I love it when a question comes in which is completely different to what we've been talking about. And I do want to be talking about football today, and we'll look ahead to Brighton, of course, which is this afternoon. But there's a couple of good questions coming in. One from Alan McKenzie, and one from Julie Husband. Julie, I'll come to yours first. Joanne, do you think press conferences could change a bit? I've got the feeling Eddie is getting a little bit annoyed at questions that get less about games and more about headlines that they create. I listen to every press conference. I don't know about you lads. I'm pretty sure you're probably sticking on your your phones and listening to it every Friday when Eddie comes on. I don't think Eddie gets annoyed, but this is my honest opinion. I just think he's very good at dealing with the media and he listens to it. I think I just often feel. I don't know how it works in the press corps. I don't know. I know they get, we hear Lee Marshall go around. We've got half an hour now, so it seems to have been cut down from over half an hour. It's a very strict half an hour. And we've got an order. We know Razor goes first. We know then whoever's working for Sky goes second. Then it's the dailies, then it's the Sundays, and that's it. We've obviously got ITV, BBC, and Mix all there. But I don't know how or what when these questions are collated. Does everyone just go in? So like say me, Mitch and Stu go in. Do we have any time to talk? Do we go in and say, right, what question are you asking, Mitch? What question are you asking, Stu? Right, well, I'll ask this, you ask that. I don't think that goes on. So I think literally what we get is sometimes we get the same question asked in the same press conference, but just in a different way. Other times there might be a press conference for a midweek game and a press conference for a weekend game, and the person who hasn't been in the midweek one hasn't watched the press conference from the midweek one, and at the weekend asks the same question that has already been asked and answered in the midweek one. So I don't know if there's a way around it, but I can imagine I would get pretty sick of answering the same question about Alexander Isak's contract. But that's one, for example, which is virtually asked every time. He's got a contract. He's there for the next 3 or 4 years. Why, Darren Eales has said he's going nowhere. Eddie Howe clearly doesn't want him to leave. So why ask Eddie Howe about that? I would get annoyed at that. So I don't know, is there a way, could we change them? Should there be set questions, or can you not control the press like that, Stu?
Well, for me, the answer is twofold. If you look at the last part of Julie's question there, and it says it's more about getting headlines and that's actually asking pertinent questions. And we've discussed this previously. It's symptomatic of what the press is about now. It's all about clickbait and views and things like that. So they'll ask questions whether they'll try and sensationalize an answer. And because Eddie plays with a straight bat, it's very hard to get some sort of scandal or sensational answer from him, so that makes it difficult. But you're right, when you get a question answered, for me, is it laziness on behalf of the journalists? I understand if you're going near the end, the question that you were going to ask is probably already been asked, if that's the relevant topic at the time, whether it's regarding someone's injury or someone's contract. But then why don't you prepare properly and have 4, 5, 6 questions that you think could give an answer, that would give it an answer, and scratch them off once they've been asked, rather than Eddie saying, it's similar to the answer I've just given. Because for me, it creates a lack of professionalism. It looks laziness. And the second part in my response to the question is, it seems all too cozy. No one wants to offend Eddie or ask a hard-hitting question in case they get looked upon, or they seem to get as if they would get alienated. Whereas in the past, Steve Bruce, I don't think people cared about how the manager thought about them. Their job it's not to kiss the backside of the manager. It's to ask questions that are going to give us as fans who are waiting on answers, get these questions asked. And if they don't get answered, fine. But it's for me, it does seem cozy. Everyone chuckling, and Eddie makes a little quip, and everyone chortles away, and he gets an easy ride. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but at the same time, for me, if you had the same press back 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't get the easy questions where he can answer them without really too much stress or fuss, and without having to get flustered at all. It's too straightforward. But again, I do still listen to everyone in the hope that something does come off that's worth listening to.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some great comments coming in because people do have an opinion on this. Great question, Julie, by the way. She basically, Moza says, I mean, when they're asking, are you signing X? Are you selling Y? Do they really expect him to answer that? Mark Byers says, Luke Edwards asking Eddie, what would have happened if you hadn't gone to hospital? Supersedes the most ridiculous Louise Taylor questions. How he's meant to know the answer to that. The Louise Taylor one about drones was unique, Mark, as well. Dean says, I find the process totally repetitive and pointless now. Craig says, we don't have journalists now. We've got scribes. Their job is to push the chosen narrative. Investigative journalists are an extinct breed. And Davey T says, I don't know. I'd like to know if Eddie's got Oasis tickets. Not. Yeah, it's certainly created a bit of debate, Mitch.
Well, yeah, no, I've got to admit, I'm with Dean. I find them bloody tedious and repetitive now, and almost predictable as well. They really are. And then you get the same questions about who's fit, who's not, who's staying, who's going. Alexander Isaac. Then you get Louise Taylor asking questions, totally left field things about Lord Lucan and UFOs, and you're like
piano playing.
It would irritate the life out of me. I don't know how Eddie keeps a straight face sometimes, and I don't know how he doesn't lose his temper sometimes. I find them performative. And really, it's almost just going through the motions now. It's like they're doing them because they've got to do them. I don't think we get anything of particular value out of the press conferences anymore. Not that we ever really did, I don't think, in the past, but particularly now. And yeah, it's nice to see that some of the journalists seem to have some sort of relationship with people at the club, which is important. But then asking, like you say, what would have happened if you hadn't gone to hospital? Well, God knows. What would have happened if I got a different bus to work? Like, tomorrow, how on earth is he supposed to answer something like that? And I find it quite banal.
It's chasing the headline, Mitch, isn't it? Eddie, how close to death or something? They just chase the headline. That's exactly what it's about.
Or they'll get something like that, and then a headline writer will totally torpedo the article by putting something sensational on a headline because they want it for attention and clickbait. I don't know if there's not a better way to do it, because I think at the minute it just seems like it's something that's done because they've got to do it and they've got to be there. But I really don't see what anybody from the press really gets out of it, because it's you can almost predict about 90% of the answers.
Yeah.
Sort of questions you should be asking, right? And I'm in many WhatsApp groups, but I put it to one of the groups that the lads that got together for the cup final recently. I had a fiver bet yesterday, 9-team accumulator, and 8 of them have won. Right, so I can cash out. I'm just checking now. I can cash out for £126. Or I can let it ride for £178.76, and it's all on Real Madrid winning at home today. What would Eddie do in that position? Would he cash out, or would he have faith in Real Madrid to win? That's the sort of question you expect Louise Taylor to ask, in all honesty. And as someone mentioned there on the bottom, it come on along too quick there, but for us, we're interested in who's fit, who's not, realistically. He's never ever going to give transfer targets away. It would be unprofessional of him to do so, and he's never going to dig one of his own players out either. So he's got it boxed off. No, he's got it boxed off, and sometimes, I mean, I'd only listen on a Friday afternoon. I'm out on an afternoon walk on a Friday, so the time I can get out. And when the question's asked, I can just about answer the question as if I'm Eddie Howe. I know what's going to be said. And more often than not, it's pretty damn accurate to what I was thinking as he said it, even with the pauses and the hesitations. And then you get certain journalists, which have already been mentioned on the banner here by Mark Byers, who for me is just a village idiot. He just wants to look like he's funny and be the friendly journalist, and the hope that's like it's the dog sitting at the end of the table waiting for some crumbs to be chucked at him. Do your job properly. Get some hard-hitting questions in, and if things are going well, it's brilliant. But I think what annoys most fans as I'm reading this is the repetitiveness of the questions. And I give the answer at the very start. Write 5 or 6 different questions down, so at least there's a difference in the 30 minutes that we get.
So I guess the press conferences are like a version of NUFC Matters with me having had 5 bottles of Malverno with the lads. I think that's what we're seeing. Some great comments coming in from everybody. Craig Lee, though, this takes us on a slightly different direction. He says, I was wondering if we are starting to use the press. I've never heard Eddie mention that we're going to sign a player. Then there was Mbeumo was too expensive. Have we started playing the game with the press, Stu?
Well, yeah, I hope they have. In answer to the question, I hope they have started playing the press and being a bit more savvy with it. But at no stage did he say he was signing Mbeumo. At no stage was there a fee discussed. At no stage did anyone say it was expensive. Again, that refers back to the clickbait that we just discussed. And it's not proper journalism. We all know the areas that are in need. The right wing is crying out for attention. It's the only position that hasn't been targeted since the takeover happened, and all the windows that we've had since then. It's the only position that we've only got one player who it's its natural position to play there. So it's quite clear we need a right winger, and the right winger has to be better than what we've got. And it's understandable. People say that Eddie wants Premier League experience. Well, does he? Look at the best players we've had. They're not all Premier League experience, are it? The Brunos, the Botmans, Tonali's, Isaacs. They didn't play in the Premier League before they came to us. So they're not going to say, yes, we're in for him. Out of respect to the club, we don't like players. People talk about our players, referencing Isaac constantly. As I think we mentioned it last week, wasn't it? Arsenal seems to have died down now, and now it's Liverpool. But if we're continuously linking ourselves with Mbeumo, which I'd love to have, I think he would be an upgrade, and I think he'd be a huge asset to the team. I'm more than certain that they've got 4 or 5 people in that position that they think they can get. And sometimes the best lowest price isn't the best value. Sometimes you have to pay that little bit extra to take the team forward. And it's another club's player. And that means it's their prerogative. If their player's under contract, it's up to them to say, this is the fee we want for him, pay it or not. We'll do exactly the same with Isaac. And you get the clowns in the mainstream media, particularly on Sky Sports, saying, no, Isaac, 80 to 90 million. Yeah, all right. Put the bid in then. They're not going to get it. We all know that. So why talk about it? But if Mbeumo is too expensive, I don't know how they know this if no bid's been put in. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. We've got till the end of August to put up with all this.
I think, he makes a good point, doesn't he, Stu? Mitch? The press, will always look for a sensational story, but Newcastle using the press to their advantage. I guess the point I was trying to make when I did the podcast yesterday morning with the Three's a Crowd lot was that at the end of the day, the press will write whatever they want to write, but it's the agents who tend to let the stories and let the cat out of the bag. Clubs very rarely drop it in. It's the agent who's going to benefit from, Mbeumo or Mbeumo moving from Brentford to Newcastle or wherever he goes to, a player going out of Newcastle is, it's the agent who benefits for their 10, 15, 20%.
Absolutely. And we wouldn't be alone if we were finding ways to use the press, because there's plenty journalists who are almost client journalists for Man United and for Liverpool and write their stories to send a certain message about what they want. Like the one saying that Bruno Fernandes should have been player of the season the other week. You're like, what? And what planet are you on? And why are you writing that? And on whose behalf are you writing something as stupid as that? But it certainly happens. So we wouldn't be alone if we became smart enough to do it. I certainly think it's about time we used as many different tools as possible to nibble back at certain things and to get messages across to certain people, or just to disrupt. I'm quite happy for us to be perennial disruptors and upsetting the norms, So I think anything that we can do that helps with that, and if using the press is one way, I'm absolutely all for it. I think if you look at how Eddie handles himself in the press conferences, you think there's some of the things he's had to put up with. He's been an official spokesman on human rights, international geopolitics, recently medicine, and his own medical condition, and you name it, he's taken all over the place, and he handles himself so well. So if there's other people in the club who can do that, and then you turn that around and have some of these journalists writing things that are useful to us, I'm absolutely all for it.
Yeah. Okay. Great stuff. Great. A great subject matter as well. Lots of other comments coming in about that, but we'll move on. Finish with Gary's comment. With journalism and the fact print media is dying, it becomes totally monetized and not there to report basic truths. By giving false headlines, it gets clicks and also money from advertisers, which is sad. Good point. Well made, that, Gary. Let's move on to something a bit different, and that is Alan McKenzie says, stand up if you love the tune. Always create a dilemma in certain areas of the ground. Should it or shouldn't it? Should I or shouldn't I? You tend to look around the section you're in and respond accordingly. Good question, that, Alan. I've got to be honest, I always stand up, although it isn't my favourite song. I am one of these people who, is, again, because of my age, I'm used to certain songs being sung in a certain way. We're now in that kind of transitional era where Newcastle has now been changed to Newcastle. We hit Nottingham Forest song is changed. The words have been changed. Things are changing now, and we've got to get used to it. Even the way that we sing Blatant Races is different to the way that I was singing it back in the 1980s. It would help for starters if people actually knew the words, but that's a different argument. But this one, stand up if you love the tune, it does cause dilemmas around the ground. My dad doesn't like getting up because he's got a bad back, but he'll do this one, but he doesn't like standing up for the stand up if you hate Sunderland one. He thinks it's ridiculous. So it's weird, isn't it? Everyone has got a different opinion. Is this something you've even thought about, Stu?
Not really. I mean, the Blatant Race is something that Mitch and myself have discussed on many occasions over several pints. And for me, it's like, it's now getting sung like people are like a gazelle on steroids. It's like they get through it as fast as they can. And as you said, most of the words are incorrect. But sometimes we can be too traditionalist and get accused of not moving with the times. But stand up if you love the tune. For me, that had its day back in the 90s when the ground was expanding and people then, for me, it was after the Taylor report, not the Louise Taylor, after the Taylor report where the grounds went from Terracing to all-seater stadium. And for me, it was like a rebellious chants against the rules that were enforced. You know, where people were told to sit down, so stand up if you love the tune. That I got at the time, because you're in a position where if you do stand up, you get a steward running across. Sit down. We'll throw you out. You know, and apart from Val Doonican, it's pretty difficult to sing and sit down, isn't it? So you have to be conscious of it. I mean, I don't think that's the biggest issue or the worst song that we could have, but I get this. I get the point where people are saying, you know, it's petty, but there's a lot of the new age songs that are on as it was, but that's because there isn't a collectiveness as there used to be. Going on to switching subjects back to the Man City thing, I go back to when we were lads and everything, late teens, early 20s, and following Newcastle home and away. And for me, the season tickets, the way the away tickets are distributed, and the way that the threat of taking tickets off people, it's you know, it's people's love. And there's a generation that is going to be missed. I mean, I know there's still some youngins that manage to get in, whether it's through the right channels or the wrong channels, or they manage to use friends' tickets or whatever. But there's too many corporate tickets for the away games, and that's more of a concern, because if you go at the away games, you do get the fans who are travelling, and it's not seen as a day out, like a day at the races or a day at the theatre. It's part of their life. It's a passion to sit on a coach for 6, 7. Look at the people who went down to Brighton today, you know, on a Sunday. What time did they get back? Late Sunday night, Intergraft again tomorrow. And that's, for me, is what support the club's about. But you see the difference between away games and home games. The gap, it's becoming a chasm. It's not just a gap, it's a chasm. So I think the way stewarding is probably how has a bigger effect on the stadium. But if you get a song stand up, if you love the tune, I get it. Some people don't want to stand up. Some people aren't able to stand up. Some people think it's pathetic. Some people feel embarrassed if they don't stand up. Does that mean they don't love the club? You know, it's for me, it's a mindless discussion.
Okay, yeah. What do you think, Mitch? Songs, of course,
I'm a
part of the crowd.
I'm a bloody nightmare to sit next to, because I'm up and down like a fiddler's elbow all the time. In terms of standing up for songs and things like that, like Stu says, it's bloody hard to sing when you're sitting down, really. But I'm at the point where my back and my knees don't enjoy standing for 90 minutes always. But yeah, I'm just a nightmare to sit next to anyway, because I'm up and down and up and down and up and down, and some rather colourful language out my mouth on occasion and things like that. So I get what they're saying about, you know, you see people hesitant sometimes and looking around them like, well, am I the only one doing it? But it's part of sport, isn't it? It's part of the passion. And if that's what you want to do, people have just got to do them. You do you. That's what I'm always, you know, keen to push. If that's what you want to do, go do it. But it's very, very difficult in the age of all-seater stadia, and where you're actively encouraged to sit down, stroke threatened by marshals. It's difficult now really to know what to do, and I get that totally. It comes back to the discussion on areas of safe standing, and if that's what you want to do, there should be an area where you can go and do that safely. But it shouldn't be enforced on everybody to sit or to stand. You should be, if there should be a way for you to have that choice.
It's like was it whack-a-mole at the Hobbins? You're up, you're down.
Yeah,
steady on.
Aye, that's me as well. You know. So you know, it is. That's where this conversation goes back to. I think for me, is you know, that really, it's been proven in other leagues around the world. You can have very good and safe areas in which people can stand, and it also then comes back to ticketing, where you could create an area where the 18 to 25-year-olds can get tickets together, and will that help the atmosphere? Because atmosphere certainly is discussion still. You know, the Arsenal were blaming the lack of atmosphere against PSG on various things, even though they tried to throttle how many PSG fans were in the crowd and what have you. The Emirates was like a library again, and you know, surely sort of safe standing arrangements where people can do exactly that with their mates is going to help with things like that too.
Was it Mitch who started the Mexican wave, says Mark?
Probably.
Mark Bayer says those in the corner in the safe standing are already standing when they start the chants. They're cheats. Mark always says, always chucks a question. He says, you can bring back one chant from the 80s or 90s era. Which one would you bring back? He says, mine is simple. I'd bring back United, clap, clap, clap. Lose the tune, which has replaced the clap. Yeah. Is there a particular song you would bring back?
I like that one, wasn't it? There was a real togetherness for that, wasn't it? But my favourite song is the same as Steve Hastie's back from that day, but obviously it's changed a lot and the player doesn't play anymore. It was the Andy Cole song. I used to love it. But obviously he doesn't play now. But the United Clap Clap, that was much better. You know, you felt like an army, especially in away games. You know what I mean? It was you felt part of something, like togetherness, like a force of nature. And it's like, challenge us if you want. You know, no matter how good or bad we were, and more often than not we were bad until Keegan came in. It was unity and united, strangely enough. So yeah, I get that, Mark, and I wouldn't be against it if it was done properly. But like I say, the kids nowadays seem to want to do everything quicker for whatever reason.
Yeah. Any particular song you would bring back, Mitch?
I'll tell you what I always remember, and I can't remember the lad's name. He used to get in the Gallagher corner, and he used to wear dungarees a lot, and he'd stand on the barrier.
Well, Willie.
Who
are Willie?
On his bucket. And he'd always start, if you're proud to be a Geordie, clap your hands. But then, after about 3 or 4 different things, he'd go sideways, and it would be like, if you're proud to be a Geordie, be a tree, and things like that. I used to love that. That was just proper daft, and I love daft shit like that. I think we need more daft humour in football, and not take everything so seriously.
Newcastle, you know, they just called it Newcastle. It sang with that much passion and gusto. You know, it really can intimidate the opposition, the team and the fans. You know, but everyone has to be at it at the same time. Not like, excuse me, can you keep the noise down? And that's the way football's going, unfortunately.
The other point you make about timing, they want to sing that song ridiculously quick now. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Get the syllables out. Take your time.
I never liked the tune word either, Mark. He says, I've never been a fan of the word tune for some reason. Don't know what, but it makes me cringe. Yeah, it came in, didn't it? And this tune army thing. Yeah, I've got to be honest. It's all about getting older, though. Things do change. Lots of songs coming in now. Craig, I love the Mirandina song. The England war cry from the guy in the East Stand, of course. Was good. Mark Owen didn't know this one because obviously, you know, I didn't start supporting Newcastle in the 80s. Apparently, there was a chant about Supermac when he went to Arsenal. Lots of people talking about Arsenal's song as well, saying that it's an atmosphere killer. Your dad's jumped in with that as well. Gary Milligan says the Magpie Ranger is one of his favourites. And Steve Bennett says, showing my age now, but especially away from home, Little White Bull, if you know, you know. Dougie says, remember Tommy from the scoreboard, the tiny house. Was he not called Dingle, Mitch, says Gary.
I'm sure my age and my memory's fading a little bit, possibly.
Dave Penny loved the Mickey Burns chant.
The most popular one at the time in the 80s, Steve, was probably Sack the Board, wasn't it? But there was another one that's probably not politically correct now. But when say Davy Mack crashed into someone and the player was rolled on the ground as "You're going home in a Geordie ambulance." You know, that used to reverberate around the ground as well.
Yeah, I was going to look at me mind, "You're going home in a Geordie ambulance," but good. So the Fulwell end is always full. That one doesn't really get much of an air. Exactly, doesn't get much of an air on that one now. But yeah, some great stuff, great songs. Philip Albert's song, of course, to the tune of "Rupert the Bear." Get them, keep suggesting them in the chat. We'll have a quick break. We will be back after this. Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sport Social Podcast Network. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the like button, which is the thumb underneath this video, and click share to your social media. You could also take out a monthly membership or an annual membership at nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. For the lifetime membership, you can pay £25 and get a pen, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a badge and a keyring and your membership card and entry into the monthly draw. Some events coming up, 27th of June, 2025, the end of season party. Beresford, Howie and Watson will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre with Joe Allen in aid of North Tyneside Age UK. You can get your tickets for that one from nufcmatters.co.uk or from Woucher. No Covers takes place at the Clooney. That's on the 29th of June, midday till 3:45, and tickets are £10 from theclooney.com or newcastlelegends.com. Northern Horizon, a Blake 7 convention, takes place on the 9th of August, 10 till 4 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Come and meet some of the cast and crew in aid of Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Tickets from nufcmatters.co.uk. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place on Friday the 23rd of January 2026 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. You can get tickets from the box office 0844 249 1000 or from tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And Bad Manners are back in the Northeast at the O2 City Hall, Friday the 30th of January 2026. Tickets from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainer's book, signed by Les Ferdinand, available from nufcmatters.co.uk. Okay, welcome back to the professionals on NUFC Matters. Mark Irwin says, bring back the bloke selling peanuts. I'll never understand how he got those things to the top of the stand. He never missed. And Les says, favourite song ever was Terry Hibbert on the Wing. Tom Dixon says, E-I-E-I-E-I-O, the Premier League we go. When we get to Europe, that is what we sing. We are Geordie Super. Geordie's an Eddie is our king, is his favourite song. Of the more modern songs, Mark loved the Colaccini song. He loved the build-up part and the words were very clever. And Yvonne says that when the lads are attacking, everyone now jumps up in my section, bar 1892. Under Ashley, they were slumped in the seats throughout. Even us oldies are responding. Les also says the old version of Blade and Races was far more powerful, even if I did almost pass out by the time we reached the end of the road bit. I think we can all agree that we probably ended up doing that as well. But yes, lots of great stuff coming in. Keep it coming in into the chat. Bob Coon says, rarely get to catch you guys live. Just want to say I watch everything when we've won, but I tune in here when we haven't. Stu especially is a calming influence in my life. Thanks from Thailand.
Did you hear that, Mrs. P?
Calming influence in someone's life. That's very nice. Thank you very much.
Say, Bobby.
Thank you very much.
About that,
and Andrew Bonds, yes, we do realise that, mate. It is still possible, mate. It'll be fantastic if we do. Yes, so thanks for sticking that in the chat. Anthony Nichols says, any idea, lads, on the fair market price for a 4-game DMAC sponsorship?
The max sponsorship. So let's say it's 40 million this season is probably the going rate for Chelsea, considering they're not in the Champions League. So you're looking at just under £1 million a game, aren't you?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
But then you factor in it's almost certainly been done with the Club World Cup in mind. So can I bang a bit extra on for that?
And the European Conference as well.
I know you're being very diplomatic, but I'll come out and see it in that in terms of DMAC, and they're not really particularly liked as a developer over here always, and they're certainly, from what I know, people who are in the industry, they're not the greatest of employers either. They've got a very interesting history over here, so it's classic sort of not everything that sparkles is gold over here in Dubai, but there's certainly some clever accounting going on with Chelsea again, shall we say.
Okay. Songs certainly captured everyone's imagination in the chat. Hardly any songs for players anymore. Can we not resurrect the Franz car song for Fabian Shaw? Harry, I would agree with you maybe a couple of years ago, but we seem to be increasing them. Whoever does the songs and makes them up. We've got Nick Pope, we've got Dan Byrne, we've got Alexander Isak. Murphy's now got a song. So we are increasing those songs for people. Sandro Tonali, of course, probably the one that sung the most. So there's a lot more than there was, but maybe not one for everybody out there. Harvey Barnes has got one as well. Anthony Gordon. So there's more now than there probably was under the Entertainers. And speaking of the Entertainers, Gary says another song that was classed was sang to the words of the Kinks, Lola, but with Ferdinand and Ginola. I'd forgotten all about that one, Gary.
Yeah. What about who's that man with the black and white socks? Rule Fox. Rule Fox. That's classic.
See, this is what happens when the team does well. People really do come out with some absolute classics. Like there is a Gordon song, Tom. There is one. He does have a song. Yeah, he's got a couple there. Lee, this one always gets chucked into here. And really, this ended up being a bit of a backwards and forwards with Ben Jacobs last year with Stu, if I remember rightly. Last transfer window, the one before last, sorry. How much do you think we might spend in the transfer window, or can we exploit the PSR problems of the other clubs? I think if we focus more on the exploitation of the other clubs, I think what will be interesting, rather than trying to speculate on what we'll spend, Stu, is do you think any of these other clubs are going to be in trouble? We hear that Aston Villa, if they don't get Champions League this year, may struggle, may face penalties. Chelsea, of course, the Manchester City case getting kicked down the road again. Now we're not expecting to hear anything maybe till October. Do you think Newcastle will be able to benefit from the misfortune of others if as will happen? Some teams will not make Champions League this year. They'll end up in the Europa. Do you think we'll be able to gain some ground on some teams, or get in front of some teams, maybe like Villa and Chelsea around us?
Well, reading between the lines from the latest press conference, that appears to be what Eddie Howe was alluding to, wasn't it? It certainly is the plan. It's our time or turn to start like we did with Tik Tok and Gordon. Everton wanted more money, but they were in desperate need for money. So we had a situation there where we benefited from it, and again, last summer it worked against us. But regarding, instead of like predicting figures, I wouldn't steal Mitch's fluid sentence or his word that he likes to use in these type of questions. But the money will be there, but I think it'll be spent wisely, and this is something they have been consistent on. They haven't just went and said, "Oh, we've got X amount to spend, we'll go and spend it all." If they can't get who they want, then they've proven that last summer with Gay. If they can't get who they want for the price they want, they won't get them at all. Because if not, you then end up with a player who is going to be on a higher salary than what he's worth, harder to shift on, and we're still now coming to the end of people who were given long contracts under Mike Ashley, and that sort of thing affects the PSR. So I think there'll be a shrewd window, and I'm more than confident there will be quality additions to the first team and to the squad. And I think any manager, I know Eddie Howe said this, they'd like to get all the business done early so you can get the players in, get them bedded in into the camaraderie of the group, etc. Which will we go out and outspend people? Will we take advantage of other people? I'd like to think so. That seems to be the way that we have to go. Simply because we don't have we do have the wealth, but it's not at our disposal because of the rules that have been put in. So rather than turn this into a party political broadcast against the Premier League, we'll just work within the rules as we have done since PIF have taken over control of the club, and we'll get the best possible value for what we want to take the group forward. But I do expect us to have a good window. I really do.
Mitch? Yeah, Mitch, your views on this?
Yeah, I think Simons will be strategic and smart.
Right.
I think there's no doubt about that. And yes, I think there's opportunity there for us in a strong PSR position to take advantage of people who may be in a position where they've got to sell. And that always puts you in the box seat in negotiations. If you know somebody's under the gun, you can get the best value out of a deal. And that's sort of where we've manoeuvred ourselves to, in spite of the rules and playing it by the book and all of that. It has been exceptionally frustrating, but I do think we have things within the squad that need managed very carefully going forward, particularly if we're going to be talking Champions League next season again and all that kind of thing. And so the money has to be spent. I don't think that's an option not to again. But I do think the signings will be strategic and very smart.
I don't think it'll be like we won't be getting signings like we did under Shepherd and that, where we go out and buy a name like Michael Owen. But and throw loads of money at him. I think But the way we are and the way Eddie Howe leads us, and players talk, they talk on international breaks and stuff like that. It seems to be a group that everyone's happy to be in it and doesn't want to be out of it. And if you're a player with ambition, Newcastle has to come on your list. It may be a case where players now are looking to come to Newcastle rather than Newcastle having to give inflated wages to get them. Look, come in and fit in, and we can give you performance-related bonuses, which doesn't affect the PSR as much. Come and sign for us, and if we qualify for the Champions League, we'll give you X amount as a bonus at the end of the season. And collectively, they've got a target to aim for. But if there was a transfer, wasn't last season, it was 2 summers ago, and I know we've talked about this on a few occasions, for Maddison. He was nailed on to Newcastle. Even in the England squad, they were talking about him at the championships, weren't they, saying he was coming to Newcastle. Then all of a sudden, Tottenham put an extra 50 grand a week on his wages. Of course, off he goes. Maybe that wouldn't happen as much now, because we are becoming established. We are an attractive club, and we have genuinely top-class players. And where if you're a player thinking, do you know what, if I played with him, I can enhance my own career. And it's not just about how much you get per week. It creates sponsorships for players as well. So we've got the right man in charge. We've got the right man helping out with Steve Nixon. We've got, like I say, with Paul Mitchell, Eddie Howe. I'm more than confident they'll have a fantastic window this year, and we will start next season incredibly stronger as a squad than what we finished this one. And that's scary considering that we could actually finish second. So we've got plenty to look forward to on the pitch anyway.
Yeah, Paul. Again, just Paul's question before it disappears into the chat. Do you think we'll value target players that can play in multiple positions? I think that's a given. I think we do that anyway. Really.
Yeah, I think versatility is one of the things Eddie wants in people. Mixed skill sets, and he talks about skill sets all the time. And I think that's why he's nursing Asula the way he did with Hall. You know, I think you'll find next season we'll see more of Asula as the skill set's been developed and he's getting more out of him what he wants and what he wants to see on the training pitch. And I mean, people have always talked about, you know, clubs and when they're away in international duty, players have always discussed life in a club that seems to be on the up, for example. The modern day with social media, you see a little bit, you know, the veil on that's a little bit lifted. If you see the comment on, was it Asula's socials when he had food with Isaac and Willick?
Oh yes, yeah.
And Alanga commented on it. Where's my invite? And you're like, yeah, okay. So they have obviously been talking.
Mm-hmm.
Probably with Isaac when he's away with Sweden.
Yeah.
But it's quite clear that that's always happened. But now you see, you know, the veil's a little bit lifted on it. And players will naturally want to gravitate to a place which looks good, looks in good shape, has a feel good about it.
Yeah.
And you cannot say anything other. If you look at the public face that we've shown with this squad, particularly with winning the Carabao Cup, and the togetherness of our squad is very evident. And it's very evident it's a happy dressing room.
Yeah, they're happy to go to work. You can see that.
Know, players will want that. Players will naturally want to go to that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, before we look ahead to Brighton, just wanted to show you the screenshot from Match of the Day last night. I make no apologies for doing this as we head towards the end of the season, because it is quite nip and tuck. Man City, of course, with another win, have the easier run in. Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham there is their run in. And of course, the sight of Haaland back on the bench yesterday for Manchester City will send shivers through the defenders' spines of those three teams we've got to play for. I'd say Bournemouth is probably the hardest of their three fixtures, although Southampton have got nothing to play for. They don't look as if they're capable of getting anything off Man City. Bournemouth could be a potential banana skin after their 2-1 win over Arsenal yesterday. Played very, very well. Fulham look like a spent force, just don't seem to be getting it over the line and may miss out on Europe if they don't improve their form. Newcastle and Brighton today, of course. Chelsea at home next weekend. Arsenal away. Already won down there this season. Could beat them 4 times this season, which would be fascinating and fantastic. Never been done for a Newcastle team. Of course, Everton at home, last game of the season. You'd like to think Newcastle will have it wrapped up by next weekend. Chelsea, Liverpool today. Huge game. Newcastle, of course, next weekend. Man United at home. And then what could be a Champions League decider, Nottingham Forest away. Forest seem to have blown the gasket a little bit in recent weeks, but you can't write them off even at this stage. Crystal Palace away, Leicester at home. Jamie Vardy, of course, still chasing that 200 goal. West Ham away, then Chelsea at home. Really, that's a tough run. Very hard to predict what they're going to do there. Leicester out of the relegated teams look as if they're freer and look as if they're dedicating to finish their season to give Jamie Vardy a good farewell party. And Villa, well, they've really bounced back since that Champions League exit. Bournemouth, though, pivotal fixture there. Tottenham at home, and then Man United away. You'd probably say that the Man United away game is probably the easiest game of the three there. Tottenham, I don't know which team's going to turn up. Of course, Bournemouth doing very, very well. I expect Bournemouth to finish strongly and to get themselves a European space. So, looking at that, lads, Stu, I'm still going to go for Newcastle finishing third. I still feel we'll finish third. What about you? Where do you think Newcastle will finish in the running?
Higher than they did last season, which is showing progress. The thing is, today is a pivotal game, isn't it? I know we'll talk about the game itself, but this shows the the huge disparity within our own fan base. We win today, and everyone's saying that's it, we'll get second. Because if we do win all our games, we will finish second. But the highest we can finish this round of fixtures is third. The lowest we can finish is sixth. But looking at what you put on there, Steve, the facts of the matter is, if we get 7 points from the next 4 games, and 3 of those points come from beating Chelsea next week, we will be in the Champions League. And of course, we want to be as high up as possible for my own personal gain to be 4th and above. It's in our hands. And you look at Aston Villa, I believe they're capable of winning all 3 games. That'll put them on 69 points. We get their 7 points, we go to 69. And then that's where there's a big swing in the goal difference in our favour. As long as we don't get trounced, which I'm sure we won't. But can we finish second? Would that be? Well, of course it would. I said at the top of the show that would be the best season in living memory, wouldn't it? Finishing second and winning the cup. We've never done anything like that since, well, probably the 1920s, I would say. So we're in a unique position where we can afford to lose a game and still qualify for the Champions League. And that's on the basis of every other team winning all their fixtures, which obviously Forest and Chelsea playing each other. They can't. But we have to just make sure we're mathematically sound. And that's why today is a pivotal game. Psychologically, we win today and it'll burst a few teams' balloons, I would imagine. You know, that will put us into third. We'll be 2 points behind Arsenal. We'll be ahead of Man City. The gap to Aston Villa then goes to 5 points with 3 games to go. However, if we get beat today, Aston Villa will then look at us and we're only 1 loss behind them, 1 win behind them, and they've got Arsenal away. You know, so this is why I said today is the most pivotal game. So if we do pick up a point or better, then win our home games, we'll be in the Champions League. Of course, we want to win all the games and finish second. But if you're asking me for a prediction now, I would say we'd finish.
Yeah, that's what
not
I was going to
prediction. Yeah. Not score prediction. Where we finish in the league. I would say we would finish, and I would take 4th. I'll say 4th and take it, and I hope to be proven wrong that we finished higher.
Think Man City will finish above us then?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So
they'll win all their games, so we would have to do the same to finish above them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, Mitch. After seeing the fixtures, I'll put them back up on the screen for you, just so you can see.
I would dearly love to be going to Arsenal with the pressure on Arteta and with us with nothing to lose, with even a puncher's chance of slipping past them by beating them. I think if that was to come to pass, from what I've seen of Arsenal this season, that's the kind of pressure that them and Arteta cannot cope with. They will melt down. But the only way to do that is by what I've been preaching now for ages, and on some of the WhatsApp groups I'm on, particularly the NUFC Dubai one, where people are wetting their knickers about other teams and fixture lists and things like that. We can only control what we do. Everything else is out of our hands. Everything else we have zero control over. We just have to look after our business and get the maximum amount of points we can out of the remaining games, and that should then look after itself. And we take it 1 game at a time. Stop worrying, trying to, predict and get a crystal ball out and all of that. 1 game at a time. So we've got to get Brighton out of the way today, and then reassess where we're at. And then Chelsea, get that out of the way, and then see where we're at. Like I say, I would love 2 wins and to be knocking on Arsenal's door saying, "Hi, remember us?" Because I genuinely believe they're not cope with that. Like Arteta and Arsenal and their fan base will melt. Yeah. They've had some horrendous head loss this season collectively. So for me, I would love that, but as I say, we can only control what we do and look after our business, and that's what I wanted. What I think it certainly seems to be the way Eddie's calling it. There's one game at a time. Let's get this out of the way and then see where we're at. And I think if we'll win the 2 home games and then get as many points as we can out of the 2 away games, we should be fine.
We will.
Yep, in our hands. Just going back to the chants, Mark Bayer says, players with absolutely no chance of having their own chant, part 1, Nicky Papavassilou. Alan McKenzie says, the mighty win was a favourite of mine, sung to the mighty Quinn by Manfred Mann. Gary says, how can we forget Liam O'Brien, Andy O'Brien, Any O'Brien, who put them all in the Mackham's Net? O'Brien, yeah, great song, that one as well. Okay, time to look ahead to Newcastle United's game today. It is a 2:00 kickoff. It is live on Sky Sports, direct from the Amex Stadium. 3,000 away tickets sold out. Quite a contingent of NUFC Matters contributors who are down there today as well. Just had a few pictures of the lads arriving down there and the lasses arriving down there. So have a good day and let's hope you bring 3 points back. West Ham were the last visitors to Brighton. They lost by 3-2. Watched that game last week. They're easy pickings at the back for Isak if he's fully fit today. Let's hope he is. Lewis Hall and Jamal Lascelles remain out. Matt Targett's picked up a hamstring injury, which means that his season is over. And Jason Tindall won't be standing next to Eddie Howe today. He is serving a 1-game touchline suspension after his 3rd caution against Ipswich last week. No João Pedro for Brighton. He is suspended following a straight red card against Brentford. Cadigaloo, Rutter, Webster, Milner are all out through injury. But Brighton could welcome back Jason Steele, Jan Paul van Heck and Iga Julio. And Yankuba Minte will be part of the Brighton squad today. He's contributed 6 goals in all competitions for Albion this season, 5 in the Premier League. His most recent goal came, of course, in the FA Cup on Tyneside back in March. Brighton have beaten Newcastle in 2 games already this season. FA Cup, of course, and in the Premier League, they are looking to record a rare treble against the Magpies. Overseeing things today will be Craig Pawson in the middle. It's his 4th game of the season. The South Yorkshire referee was in charge of the 1-0 home win over Southampton, the 0-0 draw at Everton, and the 2-0 home defeat by West Ham. VAR is Andrew Madeley. So, Stu, bogey team. Eddie talked about it in the press conference. He doesn't believe in bogey teams, but as far as we're concerned, this is a difficult place to go.
It is, and I've got, I think Bob from Thailand better tune out for a little bit. I've got 3 main issues of concern, which I'll then back up with 3 reasons for optimism. Is you touched on there with who's coming back for Brighton. They've got key players returning, namely Van Heck at centre half, or Hecke, however you pronounce it, and then Matoma on the left wing. Now, these are players that can hurt not just us, but any team in the Premier League. The second point is, and we've managed to manage it over the last few games, but all our players that play on the left-hand side are right-footed, and that naturally narrows the pitch, and which takes it on the third point, where Brighton, for me, play a very similar style of football to what Aston Villa do. And you seen what Aston Villa did to us a couple of weeks ago by hitting the balls in certain channels and exposing a lack of pace in certain areas. It did brutally expose us. And I would like to think, going on to being more optimistic, that Eddie Howe has done his research and he's got a plan and a strategy to not just attack their weaknesses, but to protect ours. And for me, the league table doesn't lie. It shows that we're better than them. We're higher than them. We've got more to play for. We have better individual players. We have a collective spirit. Hopefully, Brighton don't really see a big push to get into the Conference League as the be-all and end-all of their careers, where for some of our players, getting into the Champions League for the first time or again could be huge for them. So, it's Mitch referenced on Friday's Amigos when this come about. This season's broken so many hoodoos, hasn't it? Like the Man United home and away, the Wembley obviously is the most obvious one, winning it, actually scoring a goal at Wembley, and then winning a cup. What else have we done? Winning away at Arsenal again. So it would be rude not to add this little hoodoo to the collection, wouldn't it? Is another team that we should win at. And I think we will. I believe, as I've said twice already, this squad of players have in their hands to become the most successful team in living history for Newcastle United. And when they were asked individually during the course of the season, they all wanted to win a trophy. They all wanted to create history. Now is the chance for them all to do it again. And they've got 4 games to go. So, do you want my score prediction, Steve?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. When you asked this last Sunday, I said Desmond, didn't I? I said a 2-2. But invariably what happens, like with most Newcastle supporters, you get blinded with pure optimism. As the game day approaches, you become more and more confident. So I'm changing my 2-2 and I'm going for a 4-1 Newcastle victory. I think a rout on the South Coast. Let's have it today. Take it to them, get a couple of goals, sucker punch them, get them killed off, and then just pass it about.
God, I'm sticking with me 2-2, like, and I'm that's an optimistic 2-2 for watching them last week. What about you, Mitch? Again, I mean, you had the dice. What are you sticking with your prediction on Friday?
Yeah, I'll stick with 2-1 to us. I think the odds rolling 3. We're all Brighton won. Something I forgot to mention on Friday was apparently their behaviour after the cup game up at St James's was quite disrespectful post-match, and I expect there'll be a bit of needle. I think it'll stick in the memories of some of our players, the way they behaved in the tunnel and in the dressing room after the cup game. I gather was not particularly received well at St James's Park, shall we say. And so I think we'll see a bit of needle today. They play well. They've got a system that works. They've got a clever, experienced striker who holds the ball up well in Danny Welbeck, and then 3 runners who run off them. And he brings them into play. And that's what historically has given us trouble. It's knowing where our centre-backs and full-backs are going to be if you close those channels down. And if we're lacking a little bit of anything, it's pace at the centre. This is where a fully fit Botman might have been an option today, but I don't think a half-fit one would be one to go with. I think he'll stick with Burn and Share, but I think he'll maybe tweak the formation a little bit. I think you might see the Trippier tuck in a little bit and Murphy almost make it a back 5 at times. But I think it's about how we deal with those runners. That's the key. It's how do we deal with Welbeck and not allow him to hold the ball up, and how we deal with those runners coming on them from there. It'll be a tricky game. I think it'll be a good game, but I do think there'll be a bit of needle.
Mark's just saying, can you elaborate? You remember seeing a video? Is that what it was?
Songs and behaviours, yes. And Welbeck was singing Sunderland songs, and
that's right. That's right.
So there was definitely a bit of needle, but I gather there was stuff happened in the tunnel as well.
Right. Okay.
Steve, can I just add? Yeah. Just more of a play, really. We as fans, we've got to have at the moment 360-degree vision, not just looking forward and saying we could finish second. But we have to look behind us as well. And if we don't win today, let's not have a outpouring of how bad the team is and if it was a bad performance and everything else. It's still, even if we lose today, it's still in our hands to get in the Champions League. So let's hope the boys go out and perform to the best of their ability. And if they do that, we will win.
Yeah. Can I just thank everybody for taking some time out of their Sunday morning to come and watch us. 868 of you watching live, 500 of you on Twitter.
Thanks.
If you are on Twitter and you've just stumbled across this show, please just subscribe. Find NUFC Matters on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. We still do 7 shows a week. Mitch, Stu, enjoy your afternoon. And everybody else, see you tomorrow, 6 o'clock for the Fans Forum. Take care.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.